Hey, what's going on, GameLeapers? This is Coach E's top 10 mid laners for patch 12.14, and there are a few things that are changing in terms of the mid lane for 12.14. You know exactly what is going to go down on the Rift for the next couple of weeks. Stick around for the whole video, and guys, if you want to master any of these red hot champions, make sure you check out the GameLeap website. In the description and comment section, our players, our coaches who are all challenger, they are uploading champion courses, guides, high elo fun analyses for you to get better, to become the best player you can be on the Rift in Season 12. So get signed up and get that exclusive access, and let's get into the countdown. And I'm not really going to go in any particular order here, so if you guys want to do something in the comments where you tell me who you think the most broken champion is going to be, feel free to do so. So the first one we'll talk about this is Gragas, and I mentioned Gragas in yesterday's 3 most broken champions for each role video. And the reason I think Gragas is going to be broken in the mid lane is because he can run Scorch, which is getting buffed, and he also has innate sustain through his passive. So he's one of the few champions in the game who can use his abilities to regenerate his HP. And also because Gragas in the mid lane, if you're running sorcery as one of your trees, so with Scorch and even First Strike, because of your barrels, you have very good poke damage, so you're going to whittle down the opponent's HP bar and maintain yours because of your passive. So even if biscuits are getting nerfed, even if health potions are getting nerfed, it's actually good for you because you have innate sustain. So it's almost like 12.14 will be an indirect buff to Gragas, and that's why he has to be in consideration. Now the next champion who's on this countdown because they are just outright broken, this is Sylas. And I know if you play Sylas, you're probably running second wind into most matchups, because if you're against ranged champions, or any champion for that matter, you're not the best early game champion, and you need that HP regeneration to actually stay in lane and not get poked out of it every time you walk into it. So the second wind nerf is definitely going to hit Sylas, but you're just so innately broken because of the buffs that came in a few patches ago to Sylas. They have made him a top tier mid laner, and you're seeing him in pro play at the moment, picked and banned like all the time. If you don't see a Sylas on your screen, then whatever team that is, they are giga trolling. So Sylas is another champion we have to think about for being one of the best mid laners in 12.14, just like Yole. And Yole is kind of in a similar position as Sylas because Yones are going to run second wind, right? If you're against a pokey champion like a Zoe, like a Syndra, like a Gragas who might be running Scorch, it's going to be a lot harder now in 12.14 to actually get out of the laning phase and get to your item spikes in late game, where your Q will be on a very low cooldown, and happy days, you probably beat everyone. So the question is really going to be for Yone and for Sylas, can you actually get out of the laning phase now? It's going to be a lot harder to do so, but because Sylas and because Yone are just so innately broken, their kits, the power they have at item spikes, it's too much to handle. Even if they are down in CS, even if you are playing against them and you crush them in the first 10 minutes, they will always get back into a game and have some sort of impact. So that's why they're on this list, because they are just so innately broken. Now moving on to a champion who is really going to like 12.14 as well, who probably isn't good right now on 12.13, well, this is Xerath. So Xerath in the mid lane is certainly a good pick, especially if you outrange the enemy mid laner. So if the enemy mid laner is playing Anivia, if they're playing Orianna or Syndra, something like this, you pick Xerath, they can never really touch you. And if they do touch you, they run into your E, they get stun locked, and they die. But specifically for next patch, because Scorch is getting a buff, and because you're like the biggest ranged champion, you're one of those long range artillery mages, and we'll talk about another one here as well, Vel'koz, who is also on this countdown. Both of these champions, if we think about it, they're going to froth a meta where health potions are not going to give you as much HP back, where corrupting potions and refills exactly the same thing, and then we have biscuits being less effective, we have second wind getting nerfed. Like, how can these champions not excel in a meta like this? So I actually think the early laning phases of every lane, top, mid, and bot lane, are really going to be determined by who outranges who and who can outpoke who. This makes Xerath and Vel'koz extremely threatening to any champion you're going to pick. So that's why these two are on this countdown, and I think Xerath in particular is super underrated just because that E buff he got not so long ago. So the stun duration, that being longer, it actually gives him a lot more offense. Yes, defensively, if you're using it to peel yourself or to protect a backline and next to you in a late game team fight, for sure it's useful, but the offensive power you have, if you E flash for someone ganking you, that champion is 100% dead. Remember, it's stunning them longer, even if they're right in front of you now. So Xerath in the mid lane, super underrated and just broken in 12.14, exactly the same as Vel'koz. Now another champion who is going to appreciate the Scorch buff, this is Viktor. Now Viktor a little different, right? He's not an artillery mage like a Xerath, like a Vel'koz. He's really more of a battle mage. He likes people running at him and being in close range. Because of your W, because of your ultimate, you can lock down people in place who are close range. That's why Xerath and Vel'koz might be very good into Viktor, because it's a Viktor, you can never really touch them. But the fact that Viktor can run Scorch, yes, okay, biscuits getting nerfed, kind of annoying. But Viktor, even at the moment, without these changes, is doing very well in every single elo. Because most players are just going to run at you and probably play melee and close range champions, all you have to do is press your ultimate, and that's like all you have to do in a team fight to make this champion good, which is probably why his win rates, especially in lower elos, are actually really high. But in higher elos too, if you know how to play this champion, trading around your Q and the shield it gives you, also using your E, and if you are going to play Viktor, it's very important to normal cast your E. Do not not have this on quick cast. So Viktor with the new Scorch, even better, and because for the most part in solo queue, players are just going to run into you and play close range champions, that's what you want. So Viktor, another great champion for 12-14, just like Akshan. And you might be asking, why is Akshan going to be good? Because he doesn't have the biggest range in the mid lane. Well, if we think about it, his Q, especially if you're maxing this, is going to be kind of annoying to play against because of the damage it will deal consistently as well. But if we think about some of these champions too, like a Xerath, like a Viktor, like a Vel'koz, these are mobile mages. What do they not like? Champions who can jump onto them, especially if they let them, which they will, especially in lower levels of play. So Akshan, because of his heroic swing, whether you're maxing this first or second, doesn't really matter. But as long as you have this, that's the key. So as soon as that Xerath uses his E, as soon as that Xerath is as soon as the Viktor is as soon as the Vel'koz is in you go, GG mid lane. Also, the pressure you have on these guys, because it's very risky for them to ever move up into you, it's very, very high indeed. So most of the time, you'll be able to get priority because you're an attack damage champion. Your attacks will deal more damage to minions than theirs. You will get priority, you can move around the map, and these champions who are very good scalers, like Viktor, like Xerath, like Vel'koz, they won't be allowed to scale because of the pressure you have in the mid lane. So I think Akshan is going to be even better in 12-14 just because of the champions who are going to get picked in it, so watch out for him next patch. Now, one champion kind of like Akshan who has really good priority chances and has a lot of roaming potential, it's kind of like the AP version, this being Taliyah. So for Taliyah in the mid lane, okay, you might not run Scorch, right? You might be running something like Electrocute, even Spellbook I've seen in pro play, so Taliyah might not be able to take advantage of the buff Scorch. But here's the thing, Taliyah is not a melee champion like Yole or Sylas, so you don't really have to worry too much about getting outpoked yourself. And just like I said, because you have really good priority chances, as long as you auto attack guys, that first melee minion on the first wave that's coming to lane, you pretty much guarantee prio. Now, why is this so important? Well, it pretty much sets up the first few levels. So level 1, of course, level 2, and then level 3. At this point, you can move around the map, and hopefully when you get level 6 and you still have priority, that's where you can impact a game as well as anyone. Also, the buffs to Taliyah, so her Q, the base damage going up, and the mana cost going down, these have been awesome for her, and that's why as well as Sylas and maybe other mid laners, she's picked so much in pro play at the moment. And no doubt that her Weaver's Wall is a massive reason why she gets picked. But yes, Taliyah is another mid laner, guys, who's going to be extremely good in 12-14. It might take a bit of practice, but well worth it. Now, the last two mid laners on this countdown, guys, well, one of them is probably the most blind pickable mid laner still in the game, this being Ahri. So by picking Ahri, why is it so good? You have no hard counters. So let me put it this way, if you are a mid laner and you want a champion pool, Ahri is really like the cornerstone for it. If you pick her, you know you can blind pick her. And even against some champions, she's an excellent counter pick because of her mobility at level 6 and onwards. She might be very good against champions who have mentioned like Xerath and Vel'koz. Level 6, they really have to respect you. But there is certainly an argument here that 12-14 will just be harder for Ahri because, well, you probably don't want to run Scorch. You're probably going to run Electrocute, and as your secondary tree, well, you could take Mana Flow Ban, but it might be Biscuits. Scorch might not be an option. So when other mid laners, like we've talked about, Viktor, Xerath, Vel'koz, if these guys are running Scorch, you could even think about maybe Zed as an assassin running it. Yes, the poke, you're going to feel this more, so it might be annoying to play against for the first few levels. But Ahri, so versatile, has so much going for her, really no weaknesses, so she's a great champion to pick in 12-14. I don't think she will be the best, but certainly a very strong one. Now, the last mid laner to talk about, well, I think she will be a very strong one as well, but maybe not the best. And the reason I think Vex is not going to be the number one is simply because you really should be picking her as a counter pick. So if we think about champions like Sylas, like Zed, like Yasuo, like Yole, these close range assassins, throw LeBlanc in there as well. Vex does amazing against them. Why? Because of her passive, and also because, well, her W. You can never really jump onto her, especially if her passive is up, because she guarantees all her cooldowns to land because of the fear, and you get half HP'd every single time. And you might be thinking, well, isn't Vex bad at the moment? Well, because of the buffs to her Q's cooldown and also the damage in it, this means that Vex has more scaling now. So this means that in the mid to late game, when people get more magic resist, she will have a massive one-shot threat, and she will also have the wave clear and the poke she needs during the laning phase, with the Q cooldown only being 4 seconds, by the way, at level 9. That is kind of crazy, and the laning phase will still be going at that point. And maybe as Vex, you could even run Scorch in your secondary tree, maybe with Mana Flow Ban. But the issue there is, are you going to run So you will have to be very careful of using too much blue stuff when you're poking the enemy champion. But remember, that poke is going to stick more because of the Scorch you have, the extra damage, and the less sustain in the game. So it might well be worth it just to force the enemy mid laner out of lane, and because Vex is such a good team fighter as well, I think she's going to be in a great position in 12-14 too. So those were the 10 best mid laners, guys, for patch 12-14. Let me know in the comment section if you think there's a mid laner who might be even more broken than anyone we've mentioned, or just as broken. Again, let me know in the comment section, and until tomorrow's daily season 12 upload, this has been Coach Cheese. Peace.